Hi, writers! So, yesterday we talked about revising our work with different lenses. And today we're really going to do some similar work to that, but we're going to focus our lenses more on an editing lens as we look at our writing. Today I want to teach you that we're going to really start, or I should say, today I want to remind you that after you do some of your work on revising your story, you really want to reread that more to edit it with different lenses. Just like yesterday. It's really important that you read with different lenses so that you aren't overwhelmed with the task that you're looking at for every single time. Some lenses that you might read with when you're editing are a spelling lens, where you read through your whole story just focusing on your spelling. You might also read through with a punctuation lens, just trying to focus and making sure you have proper punctuation. Or you could even try to read through focusing on a paragraphing lens, making sure you broke up paragraphs in the correct spots. So today we're going to take a look at that Colin story that's been being developed, and we're going to look at it through the lens of just paragraphing first. Let's take a look. Okay, so this is the story about that character Colin that's been written for us to review. We're going to today work on editing, and we're going to read this story focusing on the lens of just paragraphing. So I'm going to read through it. I need to think, like, do I need to start adding some more paragraphs to really break up my story? I'm going to start, and I want to show you how to do this. "Mom," Colin yelled from his bedroom. He could smell her cooking pastries in the kitchen. "I see the soldiers knocking on the Carsons' door," he screamed as he ran down the stairs to warn his family. The Carsons were Colin's family next door neighbors. Colin had a good view of their home from his bedroom window. Colin's mom had a frightened look in her eyes. "Willow," she said, running to look for her husband. Colin's mom ran to the stairs that led to the attic and knocked 3 times on the door. This knock was a warning to the Murrays to be quiet. The Murrays were the Jewish family hiding in the attic of Colin's family home. Colin loved having the Murrays stay with them, especially because their son Jeremiah had become good friends with them. Okay, so writers, I have a lot going on in this first paragraph here, and I think it'd actually be a really good spot if I could kind of separate my ideas. So I'm really thinking there's kind of like this beginning idea of where Colin's waking up, and then there's that second idea of where Colin's mom is kind of knocking on the door. So I think since those two ideas are separate, I should really separate them into separate paragraphs. So I'm going to look at this part right here, and I'm going to make sure I press my tab button 1 time so that I know these are 2 separate paragraphs here. Now I'm going to keep reading. And I also want to keep in mind that when characters are talking and a new character starts talking in a conversation, that's also a really good point for you to start making new paragraphs. So let's keep going. "Luckily, the soldiers passed by their house without coming in. Colin's family breathed a sigh of relief, knowing it was only a matter of time until the soldiers knocked on their door. At age 9, Colin knew how important it was to keep the secret of the Murray family. He knew that not only would the Murray family be at risk if they were found by the Nazi soldiers, but his family would be too. The next day at school, Colin saw his best friend Marla on the monkey bars." Okay, so I'm going to pause right here again because I know this part about the monkey bars and the part before where he's talking about the Murrays are 2 separate ideas. 2 separate ideas need 2 separate paragraphs. So I'm going to split that up. "The next day at school, Colin saw his best friend Marla at the monkey bars. He ran up to her to tell her about his new card game that he bought over the weekend. Intrigued, Marla jumps off the monkey bars and asks Colin how to play. He responds with, 'It's easy. Jeremiah played at 10 o'clock last night.' 'Who's Jeremiah?' inquires Marla. Her and Colin were best friends. She was sure she'd never heard of him mention Jeremiah before. Okay, so writers, there's one more spot here I'm noticing where 2 different characters are talking. When you have 2 different characters talking, it's really important that you split up that dialogue into new paragraphs so that the reader is not confused with who is speaking at that time. So here, where it says, "It was so easy, Jeremiah played last night," and then, "Who's Jeremiah?" I'm going to make that a new paragraph so that my reader really knows that Colin is talking and then Colin's friend Marla is talking. Okay, so writers, Today, as you revisit your historical fiction stories, I really want you to focus on reading your stories through a lens. Try to decide, what editing lens are you going to work through first? Maybe you're going to read through your whole story just focusing on a spelling lens, and you're going to make sure you spelled every word correctly. Be careful, because just because the computer isn't saying you spelled it incorrectly doesn't mean that's necessarily the right word you want in there. So really pay attention to that lens. Once you take a second to go through your spelling lens, you might also want to reread your story through a punctuation lens, making sure, did you put dialogue quotation marks in there? And did you put a question mark when you really should have? Finally, make sure you go through and think about paragraphing. When different characters are talking, that's a good spot to make new paragraphs. Also, when your ideas start becoming separate and different, that's also a good point to start making a new paragraph. So I'm really excited today to see all of your work as you start going through and reading and editing with these new lenses. Please keep in mind, this work takes time, so don't rush. Make your stories as strong as they can be. I can't wait to see.